Okay. People are joining. Welcome everyone who's joining. We will be getting started here in just a minute. We're so excited to welcome our 4 esteemed panelists. I'm going to give everyone 30 more seconds to join. Okay. I know that hasn't been 30 seconds, but let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, Sophia, can you stop screen sharing? Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Dwyer. I'm a senior executive coach at Werq, and welcome to Amplifying Great Leadership. We have 4 fantastic panelists for you today. And so we are going to dive right in. And first, we're going to go to Ilana. And Ilana is the founder and CEO of Werq. She's a board director and an investor. Werq is an executive coaching and strategic leadership advisory firm serving CEOs and their teams. Prior to founding Werq, Ilana held executive leadership positions in the addictions and recovery space. She holds a master's degree in social work. And as you might imagine, she is a certified executive coach. Ilana.
Hi, thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so it's International Women's Day. Thank you very much for being here. And I just want to say happy birthday to Werq because it's also our 5-year anniversary. So congratulations. Thank you very much for founding the company, Ilana. You're welcome. So I'm curious for folks to hear what motivated you to step into the role of leader.
Thank you. And thank you everyone that's listening and to my fellow panelists. I'm so excited about this. Happy International Women's Day. It's a great question. And as I reflect on it, I don't know that it was a choice, actually. One, I would question, what does it mean to be a leader? We were chatting before this got started about all of us on the panel here have children. And one of us, Lisa, her daughter is an ambassador and already a really strong leader at 11. So one, I would, how do we define leader and how does that show up in different spaces? But when I go back in my own history, what motivated me to step into role, it almost wasn't a choice. It was following the next right decision and having a real love for growth and a real love for people and a real love for efficacy and like doing what works and having that almost land me in evolving leadership roles. And I look back on it and every single experience, every single leadership role in terms of what you could look at in an org chart, it taught me something, it grew me, it challenged me, and it made me ready for the next natural step, which was typically into a bigger, broader role. Hence, founding this company, that was a major leap in leadership to go from, okay, now I'm going to go from helping a company run really effectively and make a big difference and make good money and, make people's lives better, whatever the case may be, to I'm going to actually start something from scratch. Can I lead an idea? Can I lead a way of putting value into the world that attracts people to it? And look who I got, Kelly Dwyer. You don't know Kelly Dwyer yet. You should. She's fantastic. So I get to attract now. So long-winded way to say, I don't know that I was motivated as much as it found me. And then I continue to say yes to the challenge.
Great. Thank you very much. So Lisa, I'd like to move to you next. So Lisa Ramirez, welcome. She's the Senior Vice President of Operations at Indeed, where she focuses on the operational efficiency and effectiveness of the company. Lisa joined Indeed in 2019 as Chief of Staff to the CEO. And before joining Indeed, Lisa was Chief Customer Officer and SVP of Communications at NetSpend. She graduated with a bachelor's in psychology from the University of Texas. So Lisa, you spent 12 years focused on the customer experience and was also tapped to lead corporate communications. Then you joined as Chief of Staff to the CEO and now have stepped full on into operations. And that's a really interesting portfolio of leadership across a variety, seemingly across a variety of different spheres. So I'm curious to know, what's your definition of leadership and how has that transformed in that journey that I just described?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of what Ilana was saying really resonated with me, which is, and I did a conversation last week where I was explaining that I really started studying leadership in high school. Like I was in student council. And so I was going to all these leadership seminars and that kind of thing. But really, and I started my career in consulting. And I think I've just always brought this lens of like, what could be better? What could we do differently? And so when I was at Netspend, I actually wrote the business case for like creating customer experience. And then side note, I thought I would be potentially good to lead it. So it was like at the end of the business case was like, we should have a VP of customer experience and it should probably be me. And so I think I've always just looked for those places where there's a need and tried to fill it. And really, and that's how I ended up getting corporate communications when I was at Netspend. And then I loved the sort of like being essential to the business, which led me to the chief of staff spot. And then because I was doing so much around the operations of the company, that led me into the SVP of operations. But for me, and I actually heard someone say this, that like as a leader, you have to look for the holes and you fill them. And so I think that if I think about it like that, the trajectory has always been about like seeing the need and then filling it. And that has really allowed me to lead because I was doing something that the company or needed. But I've also taken just some leaps, not quite Alana level, like start a company. But I've looked for those opportunities internally, sort of like intrapreneurship, if you will.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like both you and Alana were talking about seeing the opportunity or the need, and then also having the willingness and confidence, self-confidence to step into it and raise your hand.
For
right?
Sure. I think that's really critical. And sort of, I also talk a lot about just being willing to like do a crappy first draft of something, right? Like, so if you're willing to put yourself out there and try it, it doesn't have to be perfect. That business case was terrible, y'all. Like it was bad. I looked back on it when I left and I was like, who thought this was a good idea? But it was a try, and and I was passionate about it. And so I think that, but you do have to be willing to step out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to move to Diksha next. Diksha Hibar is the Chief Operating Officer at Sonder. She leads all operations functions, teams in North America and EMEA, supply chain, new projects, design and development, guest experience, hospitality. Sounds like pretty much all of it, Diksha. So prior to Sonder, Diksha was a vice president at Lux. You worked at McKinsey & Company. You spent some time in product marketing at Google. She holds bachelor's degrees in economics and engineering and has an MBA from Harvard Business School. So Diksha, when did you first identify as a leader, and what have you come to see as your leadership superpower?
Many things that we've discussed already today really resonate as to like, I don't know that it was sort of a choice. I think that there was a moment though, I remember being in college and somebody said to me in a class, it was sort of, it was a class in a project-driven assignment. And the feedback that I gotten from my team members was like, Diksha, I just want to hear more from you. And I want to not just like see you do the things which you already do, but like, I want to build a relationship with you. I want to like, I want to feel closer to you. I remember thinking that's weird. Like, why? Like, I'm just me. Like, what do you want? And and I remember thinking like, oh, there's something there. And I wonder if it's related to, in high school, I was, student president and I'd done all these things, but I didn't really give it much thought. It was just like, oh, okay, it's a thing. And I only became more conscious of it, I think, as I became sort of older, and then I was like, oh yeah, I guess I can take on these sort of leadership roles. And then I saw myself doing that more in college and various sort of clubs and things like that I was passionate about. And so I saw it sort of build over time and build in confidence over time. And to some extent, I actually think that everybody is a leader. So there's like maybe a definitional challenge in the term leader. I think of it as somebody who's, willing and able and interested to step up and take on something. It doesn't have to be, the world's biggest, problem to solve, but somebody who's like really leaned in. That's kind of how I think of a leader, is someone who is leaned in and willing to roll up their sleeves, do the work, and certainly help inspire others along the way as well.
Thank you. Leaned in. I love that phrase, right? Okay, so Lori Shao is the CEO and founder of Finly, a digital platform enabling small, medium-sized businesses and micro enterprises to manage and grow their finances. Finley's inspired by Lori's unique perspective as an immigrant and her desire to create a premium yet accessible solution for all entrepreneurs. Prior to founding Finly, Lori spent 2 decades building fintech for small businesses at top institutions like Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and is a licensed certified treasury professional. Fun fact, she lives with her multi-generational family and a dozen pets, including a parrot that flies around, who's very well trained. So Lori, you spent 2 decades doing good work for small businesses. And what made you decide it was time to lead out in front as a founder and CEO?
Oh, wow. It was definitely a tough decision because as a woman, as an immigrant woman, where you're conditioned to believe, where your definition of success is you go work for a large company, you work your way up and you appreciate stability, right? And that's it for you. And to take this leap of faith to build Finly, it wasn't just a personal decision. It was me taking on my entire family, my children, my time with them, and everything that I would, lose the opportunity or bandwidth to handle, to do this. And I wouldn't have done it if I didn't truly believe that this space is deserving of a technology built with intention and for them. And in my corporate life, seeing, being in that unique vantage point, seeing the pipeline of innovation, and not seeing anyone developing for these small and micro businesses, yet they are everywhere. Take a step back. Oh, we would not be here today. None of us here on the line if somebody isn't taking care of our kids. If if there isn't a team that comes and makes sure that to manage our lawn care, our pool services, the cleaning crew, food, the senior care centers, for our elders, and then you realize, wow, they are so neglected when it comes to innovation with the right, the right toolkits specifically designed for their needs. And so with all these data points and seeing that, in my personal life, there is a very obvious gap, I decided to take this leap of faith, right? Finly stands for financial lift. It's in our DNA to transform communities. And so to answer to all of this, tying back to answering your question, is if I was not motivated by a larger change that's beyond myself, I don't think I would have had the courage to do this. So here we are.
Thank you. So the mission really had a lot to do with encouraging you to take the risk.
The mission, and definitely believing that, we have what it takes. I am the right person to be solving this problem this way, and we are able to scale the solution effectively for this community. And if there isn't anybody else doing it, why not me? Why not this team? Why not now? So
great. All 4 of you, there's a theme here of sort of this level of willingness to believe in yourself, willingness to believe that you have what it takes. And if you don't know it, you can learn it, right? I'd be curious to know, and whoever wants to answer this first, when did you face a crisis in confidence in your career? What were kind of the circumstances around it? And how did you navigate that back to a place of no, I'm good. We can do this, moving forward?
I would like to give you an actual story, but I'm going to see if one comes. I'm going to speak actually more about a pattern, which is, and for those tuning in, etc., I'm looking at the women on this screen and I'm looking at myself in the eyes, and we are successful, effective, confident, powerful leaders who happen to be female. And I struggle with, I would not term it a crisis of confidence. I wouldn't term it that. But man, are there some days where I'm like, why have I had to write this email 17 times? It shouldn't be this hard. Evidently, I need to go take a walk because something's going on inside of me that isn't allowing me to show up as my best self right now. And I don't want to give the impression there's not a linear path of like, you weren't and then you were, you aren't confident and then you are, you aren't a leader and then you are. No, it's like a daily, beautiful, wonderful process of ongoing growth, ongoing self-actualization, ongoing building of not just skill and capability, but the confidence, the belief, the sophistication of how to bring that out. It's ongoing every day. And God forbid I ever like land in a moment in my life where I am not absolutely like cup ready to be filled by the next thing that I can learn and the next way that I can grow. Like, so you talked about crisis of confidence. I would love to hear, and I'm sure I can tell stories about specific moments and times and whatnot, but there's like many potholes of confidence struggles all the time. And I will tell you, because I coach CEOs of big, beautiful, amazing, thriving companies, it's not me. That's human. That's human. And so when I look at effective leadership, it's not hiding from that. It's not trying to put a pretty bow on it. It's going, yeah, this is how it is to be a human being. So let me work with that and let me resource that and let me figure out how to take what I need when I need it so that I can show up as my very best self.
Thank you. What comes up for Lori, Lisa, Diksha?
Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
I was going to just quickly take a stab at it. There are definitely moments where I'm just like, yeah, we're going for it, this full of confidence and doing what we believe is right. But on a daily basis, there are multiple times every day where I'm just like, what the heck am I doing to myself, to my family? Like, I should just go back to JP Morgan or somewhere, right? And just work hard, but cruise. It's just different level of stress. And what hits me really hard is, as a venture-backed startup, we fundraise, right? Because we're not profitable, just like many others. So and we aspire to hit our milestones so we can raise our next round of capital. And I have never been rejected so much in my entire life than I have while I was fundraising for Finley. We're very fortunate now to be supported by amazing investors. We raised, just under $10 million in a VC, but I can tell you, I probably had over 400 meetings with venture capitalists, and the no, the maybe, but really they mean no, where they challenge, no, there's no market here. What you're doing is a waste of time, and you should just go do something else, right? There's only so much confidence you can have to weather all of the negativity and feedback. And so it took a while for me to be able to reconcile that rejection for what I'm doing is not, it's nothing against me personally. I am still a strong person. I am still here to do good, and it doesn't take away from my identity. It was a very tough learning process for me to almost bifurcate my personal self and me as a leader for Finley. And every day is a struggle, and that's probably what hit me most, and the biggest lesson I learned in my entire career, just knowing how to reconcile the no's.
That's great. That's great. And that it's not, it's separate from your identity. Yeah. Diksha, you were going to say something before.
Yeah, I was just going to share. Well, this is I really enjoyed hearing folks' perspectives on this. I think the idea of sort of mini potholes of let's call it underconfidence really resonates with me, which is, it doesn't necessarily have to be one moment of like, oh my gosh, the end of the world, but like every day. Just yesterday, I was like, man, what am I doing? Like I'm, you're tired. You're like, in my case, I have a almost 5-month-old baby. There's just like, just like life, and you wonder about it. I will say though that I can point to some specifics if it's helpful to folks. Is one is, I'm very grateful to my parents, especially for helping create a ton of confidence in myself. I don't know if anyone's read Bossy Pants, the biography / memoir by Tina Fey. who I'm a big fan of. And in it, I can't remember if it was in the inscription or something, or in the sort of acknowledgements or something like that. And she said something to the effect of like, my big thanks to my parents who have given me self-confidence that is disproportionate with either my looks or my abilities. And that really stuck with me because I think it's true. And a moment I remember last year distinctly, I actually need to tell my mother this. I don't think I've ever told her this, is last year, the timing of things was quite interesting in that we found out we were going to have a baby at around the same time I was interviewing for the COO role at Sonder. And I hadn't, so my parents had been desperate, especially my mother, God bless her, had been desperately advocating for a grandchild for ages. By no means am I a young mother, let's just put it that way. And so they were like, we want a grandchild, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Some of the immigrant tones, Lori, are perhaps ring true across the board. And so when finally I could tell my mom, like, oh yes, I wasn't just ignoring you. We are going to have a child. She was so excited about it. And I was interviewing for the COO role at the time at Sonder, where I have been for 5.5 years. But I actually didn't want to tell her about it because I was thinking, I really don't want to hear my mother say, Deeksha, are you sure that this is what you should be doing right now? You're about to have a baby. And I was like, so I just put it out of my mind. And then I was very fortunate to get the role after both an internal and external search. And then I certainly had to tell her. And honestly, it was a lesson to me that I vastly underestimated my mother, because she, as soon as I told her, she was so excited and she was unequivocally thrilled. And I don't even think it was, by no means do I think it was a sham. I think she genuinely felt that way. So much so that she was also like, don't worry, I will raise your child for you. And I was like, all right, it's fine, Mom. Just like, again, Indian mother is a different level altogether. But I really underestimated her, and I should tell her that actually. And it meant a lot to me that she was so supportive, and not even just supportive, but she was like, passionate about it on both fronts. And that was probably a moment that I felt kind of underconfident about it, and I should have given her more credit. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So many potholes, the separating kind of the challenges in a career or an effort from your identity. And then, Deeksha, you really talked about the confidence in our relationships, confidence in those around us. And obviously you had the confidence to go for the big job, even while pregnant. Congratulations. Thank you very much. That's a great example for all of us. So Lisa, as you think about those topics, what comes up for you?
Well, there were a couple things. Alana said something in the beginning, which is like the next best step or the next right step. And so for me, when I think about confidence, I definitely think about it very similar to Alana in that I have confidence dips on the regular. But because I have also had plenty of failures, I can always see to the other side. And so I actually think that like the failures and the things that I've learned from are the things that actually get me through the dips in confidence, because I really know, and I've, had some fairly sizable like challenges and failures, and I've been able to recover from them. And that ability to recover has always like given me the strength to like see myself through any confidence dips. And so when I talk to young people, which I'm gonna be at UT tonight talking to a group of seniors, and that we will talk about this, is that I really encourage people not to just try to strive for perfection, because the people who are like striving for perfection put themselves in a box that means they can't take chances, and they don't actually have the confidence to get through those dips. And so I think I've failed enough that I'm able to see myself through those like momentary lapses in confidence. But I think it's really, really important. It's really important to have some stumbles because it builds the confidence that you can always recover. And I think that for me has been really, really important.
Great. And so you're speaking to, building your confidence through your own life experience and challenges. Yeah. And then you mentioned sharing that with others, right? And so I guess I'm curious, if you think about your team at Werq, what are some of the values or principles that guide your style at Werq, and how do you communicate those to your team? And Lisa, that's to you.
Well, Kelly, I do have a list of principles. I cannot rattle them off right now, but I have a printed out list of principles that I provide to my team, because my coach, I have an executive coach, and one of the things she talked to me about early on is she was like, do people know how to win with you? Do they know what you're actually looking for? I said, well, I have this list of principles. And she was like, okay, but do they, like, is it super clear? And so I have there, I think there are 13 of them. I can give you some of them, but they are things that I've like sort of honed over time. Interestingly enough, when I was at the same dinner last year, one of my principles is never send the third email. That once you get to the third email, you got to call somebody, you got to get on Zoom, like it's not hitting, like, don't keep going over email. And one of the seniors was like, so I shouldn't send the third text message to my new boss on this new job about football tickets. And I'm like, yeah, no, don't do that. But I think that I do have a pretty specific set of things. And then I have 4 words that I use. And that is, I use get instead of have. So we don't have to do things, we get to do things. I use and instead of or. I hate when people say we could do this or that. I'm like, how do we do both? And then we instead of they. I hear a lot of like, they won't do that, they won't do this. I'm like, we're all in the same team. And then yet. My daughter has dyslexia, and so she couldn't read when she first started, when she was in kindergarten. And so she would say, I can't read. And I would just say, yet. Like, and so I would make her repeat it. I can't read yet. And so those 4 words are like, that's definitely, those are like that probably exemplifies my values more than anything. But again, I do have a whole set of principles, which I would gladly provide to anybody. So it's a whole other talk.
Thank you. Thank you. So Lori, I noticed you wrote some things down, and I'm curious to know, or I thought you did. That was the story in my head when I saw you look to the side for a moment. You're founder, you're CEO, you've got a growing team of people, because you've got venture capital money. So you're hiring people and doing things with that money. How do you what are the principles, or what do you communicate to your team around leadership?
Yeah, so first of all, I wrote down Lisa's 4 words because I think they're awesome. And so principles for the team, we are at every given stage for early stage startup, we're focusing on different things, right? How we're looking at the milestone should be different, because our motivations are different. The speed to which we need to achieve these milestones are different. And so right now at this stage, my focus with the team is essentially, we need to hit our next milestone. We are looking for quality. You have to have a strong sense of responsibility for everything that you produce, everything you deliver, and for your team members. We are a growing team, but we're still a small team, right, compared to an average size company. And there's no project, there's no team members to hide behind. If you come in to do design, if you come in to do product, if you come in to do back-end engineering to do this particular thing, that's you're it, right? And so if you're not able to deliver something that you can be proud of to show to the outside world, or to show to your family and friends, then that is subpar. And so really the sense of excellence, a sense of quality for yourself and your work, that is what we focus on right now for the team. And it's a challenge to get everyone on the same page. And it's also a challenge to quickly determine if we have the right people in the right seat at this stage, right? And there just within the past 6-8 months, there has been a lot of tough decisions that were made for the benefit of Finley, and it's just it's growing pains, but it is a journey that we're all very grateful to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. So that's very clear. You're very clear about what needs to happen now, and what are the principles or the values that the team needs to be embodying in order to achieve success. So I want to shift gears just a little bit because it is International Women's Day. And so, no one person is a statistic, right? But there are patterns, there are trends. So Deeksha, I'm going to come to you. I'm curious to hear your perspective on what's the most unproductive, another word might be dangerous, but an unproductive sort of trait or behavior that you've seen derail the careers of women leaders that you've had a lot of exposure. You were at McKinsey for a long time, you spent some time at Lux, now you've been at Sonder for a while. The women leaders that have been around you, what have they done or not done that's really gotten in their way?
That's a great question. To some extent, I will say that the organizations that I've been part of, there's probably a self-selection bias there too. Like the places that I have enjoyed working have attracted a certain kind of person who behaves a certain way that I would endorse. But again, this is just personal, this is like a personal observation. I would say that maybe the thing that derails folks the most is this sort of this belief that you have to choose one path or the other, irrespective of what one is actually interested in, irrespective of their support models, or what have you. The reason I say this is the following is that, and I'm happy to share something more personal, which is my husband and I were not sure that we wanted to have a child. One of the reasons my aforementioned mother was stalking us for so long was because we were like, nah, we're good. And so when we finally changed our mind, and we're very fortunate to change course, let's say, relatively quickly, it was a big shift. And so I spent a lot of my time sort of reflecting before that, because I didn't think that this was something that I wanted to do. And I just think that people just assume certain paths, whether it be, hey, you want to start a family, you don't want to start a family, you assume what that would look like if you went down one path versus another for your work. And I think that, all of society is guilty of it. Frankly, I have only realized since becoming a mother that I have been guilty of it too. I think I have had a particular perception of what it means to be X kind of person at work. And now I realize nothing, I mean, at least for me, nothing really changed about who I am. Like, I'm still the same person I was before. And so why did I have these preconceived notions? So I think a lot of the stuff is just really all in our heads. And I think one of the biggest things really is, Sheryl Sandberg has had a lot of good thoughts on these topics. And, do I think that she is a messiah? No, I do not. But some things on the sort of lean in culture, I think, are interesting, like, stay at, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact wording, but, stay present while you're there. Don't lean back just because you're thinking about something. And I think that is often a challenge as well. Like, I find people, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the right way to do it, but sometimes I get questions from quite younger women who are not actually looking to have a child anytime soon. And they ask me questions about being a mom and things like that. And I'm like, I don't know, you don't have to worry about it now. Focus on your job. That's what you're interested in at the moment. So you don't have to start planning daycare 10 years before you wish to have a child. So there's sort of a balance there, I think, that is often missing.
Interesting. Okay. So really remain present and engaged with what's right in front of you, is what I heard. And sort of avoid falling into the trap of the either or the black and white thinking around.
Yeah. And I think just asking oneself what one really wants. I think that so often people just pursue what they think they should want or what they think society wants them to want. Just let's ask the question. You shouldn't assume someone want to get married or not. Totally your choice. You shouldn't just assume it's some kind of manual and you have to follow every step. I just don't, I actually think that younger generations are quite good at this, of really asking the question of is this really what I want? They ask fundamental questions about society and expectations in a way that I don't think, my generation has, to be honest with you. So.
Alana, I'm curious to know, as you think about, you've been a leader of women leaders and you coach a lot of women leaders. And are there any trends or what comes up for you when you think about things that most commonly derail women leaders?
Okay, so first thing that comes up for me is actually a story. I was a member of the executive team, and there was 6 of us, and I was just doing my thing, being a leader, doing my thing. And we invited in the second layer down one day into the executive team meeting to be a part of it. And we're walking out, one of the young guys, probably, I don't know, whatever, younger guys in his 20s somewhere, we're walking out of the meeting and he gives me what he thinks is a compliment. And he goes, Alana, wow, like that was so cool to see how you really like held your own and like had something to say in that room full of men. And it was this like compliment. And I share that story because I want to just acknowledge we don't have to own it, but there can be that perspective, where there was this like surprise that I was owning my space and my presence and my expertise and my wisdom and my power next to all of these primarily older men. So there's an external perspective that we simply to be aware of. The good news there is there can be an ease if you find yourself in that sort of a community to exceed more easily. I'm going to say that because sometimes you walk into a room and the expectations are lower. They're like, oh, there's the woman. Well, we'll see. And you walk in and you say something that's rational and meaningful and powerful, and all of a sudden they're taking notice in a different way. So anything can be twisted into, a benefit. You don't have to own an assumption of what it means for you. So I share that. You asked me though, Kelly, about what derails, and the women that I work with, actually similar to what you shared, Diksha, none of them qualify for this because I work with senior executive leaders, period, male, female, non-binary, whatever. I work with folks like that. So this doesn't apply, but there can be this, you can see it in the data, actually. You can see it in the data. Men are oftentimes given the next opportunity because someone thinks they can, whereas women are given the next opportunity because they've proven that they could. So just think about that for a minute. It drives me insane. And then people take on that mentality. It's like, well, I shouldn't apply for that job because I haven't done that before. Or Lisa, you shared some great stories earlier about like, I would come up with this idea. Now I think it was, I wouldn't place the same stock in it, but at the time I was passionate. I said, and it should be me. Women have less of a tendency overall to raise their hand and be like, here's this big, hard thing. No, I haven't done it before. Absolutely betting on me. Absolutely betting on me. We're less likely to do that. And I think that really gets in the way. I actually route all the way back to our very first conversation. I loved what every single member here shared about what does it take essentially to be a good leader. There's so much about it that is ongoing, saying yes to the challenge, not in an arrogant way, not in a prideful way, but in a truly ambitious and like a true desire to make it better, leave it better, create something better, right? So say yes to the challenge. And no, my mother has a quote, but it wasn't her quote, but it was one of her favorites. And I always associate it with her. The bird does not fear the branch breaking beneath her feet, for she trusts her wings. So it's not about knowing that it's all going to go well. It's about knowing that you can figure it out, not in an arrogant way. A lot of figuring it out is asking for help and getting the next learning and resourcing in different ways and trying a strategy and failing. And in the course of that failure, Lisa Ramirez being confident that, wow, this is great because I'm going to learn a lot from it. So I'm happy to be failing right now. Literally, I'm growing. So being willing to raise your hand and take that next step, even when there's an absence of data to prove that you can, just knowing that you will. That is something I see women do less frequently on the whole than men. And I'm speaking in statistics, which isn't fair, but I would love for women, anyone really walking through, listening or walking through their lives to go, yeah, I'm going to take the challenge. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to say yes. If, back to Diksha, it's what you actually want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So that brings up for me, what, there's that research around the double bind that we find ourselves in with the likability and competence, right? So we're either likable or we're competent, but, in the eyes of others. And, you all are senior in your leadership journey, in your career journeys, right? You've moved up the chain of power, if you will. How have you navigated, how do you navigate power structures or dynamics now that's different than how you did when you were earlier in your career? Lisa, it looks like you have an answer for this.
Like same bumbling like idiot that I was back then. I am now. Like I sort of like don't do it. Like, I just don't do the like politics and the power play and like, and I think about, I have a friend who is definitely on my personal board of directors, and she knew me when I was like putting binder clips in my hair, to like hold it back, and I just don't think I'm that different. I think I was just as like bold and brash and like would go ask, I just sort of always was who I am, and I think it's worked. But I haven't been so stressed about politics and power structures. I just sort of, and my old boss gave me a necklace once that said GSD, and someone was like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Get shit done." That's like, I didn't know it was my brand, but they literally engraved a necklace that said it. And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess that's it." And so I think I've just always focused on the work and not trying to advance myself, just get the work done and do it really well. And so I think, and like, and in that way, I just don't think I don't think it's been very different. I think I was like this way when I started. And if you ask the partner that I first worked for, like, he would say that I was on the fast track to part-time. I was always on the bubble. He would say, like, it was either brilliant or I was going to get fired. He wasn't totally sure. And I think that's just always like, I just have always shown up as the same in that same way. And so I saw this question. It was super interesting to me because my brain couldn't compute it. Because I just think I was, and we also, my friends and I say, like, can you imagine, like, we were like 23 and like telling these executives what we thought should happen? Like, would we listen to that 23-year-old? We're not sure. But we just sort of came into the workplace at a time where we got to do some big stuff. And we just always just sort of thought, like, no hierarchy of ideas. If you have a good idea and you're willing to do the work, like, just get it done. So.
Okay, GSD. Lori, you spent, you're in fintech, right? And you spent a long time with some more traditional big financial institutions. What's been your experience around navigating power structures?
So I'm very much used to being the only woman in the room. And I'm also a little numb to the perception of what I'm able to deliver, right? So I could be sitting alongside my male counterparts and maybe they are associates supporting me. But the person that's meeting us for the first time might be expecting me to be the note taker, right? Like, that is also, those are experiences that I am very, unfortunately, numb to. So what I say to this is, it's very difficult for one person to change a pre-established environment. But my growth through this entire process is really internal. And specifically, it's really how I am internalizing feedback in my environment. I have a choice to look at this from a negative lens or dismiss it, and just reach for the positivity. And at the end of the day, I do feel like there is change, but it doesn't happen quick enough to impact all of us. So what do we have control over? It's how we feel and how we are handling ourselves, and not letting these negativity or environmental impacts truly impact our own productivity and our focus on execution, right? So at the end of the day, very similar to Lisa, I am also here to execute with speed and precision, just go, go, go. And it took me a while to not have the external factors directly impact my ability to execute with speed and precision. So
Okay, thank
get rid
you.
of the noise.
Get rid of the noise, right? Focus on what's in your control. Okay, so we are almost at time. We're going to do one speed question as our last question, okay? So be thinking. What's one piece of advice you'd give to any aspiring leader who's looking to maximize their impact? Alana, I'm going to go to you first. What's one piece of advice?
Start with why.
Start with why. Nice. Diksha.
focus on doing a good job, and everything else will almost certainly follow.
All right, Lisa.
Really get to know the business and the customer, like stay super focused on the actual mission, and make sure you're always aligned with that.
Okay. And Lori.
Just ask yourself what makes you happy, because ultimately what makes you happy is what will motivate you to wake up the next morning and continue to tackle the hard work and the challenges in front of you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for participating and sharing. Lori, Lisa, Diksha, Alana. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a follow-up survey, because we want to get your feedback, everyone who attended and is listening. So please, we'd love to hear how this has been of value for you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.